like to be able to show you how to draw, or one way to draw a castle. We've done it before. It's a lot of fun. Hopefully you will enjoy it. So first of all, here's our page. I want to start off with putting a rectangle for my main part of the castle. So I'll draw two vertical lines there. It could be a square or a rectangle. It's entirely up to you. But to the best you can, try and keep the lines horizontal and vertical. If yours is bigger than mine or taller than mine, that's quite all right. There's lots of different castles.
Mine's skinnier and taller.
Sure, that's quite all right. So this is the main part of the wall. On either side, I want to put the towers. So I'm going to extend this line up here a little bit. Draw a parallel line. Now this here is going to be left. I'm going to leave that open for just a moment, just so I can show you something.
Is the same on both sides?
Yep, absolutely. They can be a little taller, a little wider, a little shorter. It doesn't matter to me.
One of them is fatter at the end and
Right now, if I was to draw the bottom of my castle here, like this, my castle looks fairly flat. But if I was to draw the bottom of my castle a little lower, notice how you see it all of a sudden comes out a little bit, it sticks out. This here is now in front of it because it's lower on the page. So I'm going to draw this just a little bit lower. Doesn't need to be a lot lower. If it's down too low, it'll look silly. If I was to draw it down this far, that's really silly. It's not even part of the castle anymore. If I was up too high,
I think I did
it's now behind that wall. So you want to make sure that it's just slightly lower than that. Now I've got some space on either side, so I can make my castle wider. If you don't, well then you don't have to. It's entirely up to you.
Still got more paper.
I am going to, we've already handed out some paper a number of times, Austin.
I got more paper left. Can
Oh,
I throw
okay.
the drawbridge right here?
Not just yet.
Okay. Now can I make more at the castle?
So I'm going to make a little bit wider. And because it's the end of my last one, I'm going to make this one taller and bigger. You can do that if you'd like. You don't have to. It's entirely up to you.
I'm going to do it.
And I'll do the same over on this side.
Yep, you have to do the same.
Okay.
I don't get what you're doing.
So these are the other.
Wow, Mr.
So this is the basic space of my castle. Do not draw the drawbridge or the door, the pathway, or anything else just yet, if you don't mind.
I can't make the same size.
That's okay. It's a different castle. When I'm drawing on either side, right now my castle is sort of floating in the air. I want to put it on the ground. If I was to draw the horizon line, say right here, we're sort of sitting right on the ground. If I draw it too low, oh, my castle's now floating. Up here, I now put some space behind the castle a little bit, so it's in a field. So not too far up, but around here, I can draw a little line there. If I want to have it on a hill, that line can go down a little bit. Not too much. It doesn't need to go down a lot. But a slight slant if you want. If you don't want to and want to leave it flat, that's fine as well. Gladly in a moment I'll come around and take a look at everyone's work. Did you not leave any space at the bottom? That's okay. If you realize you didn't leave any space, you've got two options. One, try to remind yourself for next time, I'll leave space. Or two, if you wanted to redo it, just do it again on the back. I wouldn't bother erasing it. Yeah, you can start again on the back. It's okay.
Or you could just do it underneath.
Yeah, you could. So we can now start putting in some details. I'm going to put some detail on top of our towers. There's lots of different shapes we can use. I'm going to start off with just a straight triangle. And I'm going to make my triangle bigger than my tower itself.
I made rocks under the
And that makes it look more like an actual, to me at least, rooftop. If it was the same size or smaller, it'd look a little strange. If I did it this size, to me that looks a little bit odd. So I like having mine bigger than that.
I made rocks under.
But you don't have to have it that way. Maybe you want a little path around it so your guards can wander around. So on either side here, and I'm going to draw a little crenellated line up and down.
I'm making a good.
I could do that on top of it.
How do you do that?
It's just a over, down, over, up, over, down, over, up. Over.
I'm making a garden.
I could if I wanted to. Have a small little room before I put a tower. Like that. Could even put a little window there if I wanted to. Maybe 2 windows.
I made a garden right here.
Or I could combine some things. Maybe I'll have my little pathway around here, over and down.
I'm making a jail.
All right. Can have my little building there. And now my rooftop. One neat thing that I've found, that if I use a curved line as opposed to a straight line from my roof, it can make it look a little bit more magical. So I'm going to find out how tall I want my roof. So I draw an imaginary line straight up in the center. Then on either side, I can draw a slightly curved line as opposed to a straight line. And I find this curved line, when it curves in, it looks a little bit more magical.
Mr. Byrne, I'm making like the inside of the castle right here.
Fantastic. The next thing I want to think about is a door. How do we get in? And the scale or the size of the door is really, really important. And not in the way that you think it is. So I'm going to have my door here, and I'm going to assume that I'm using upside down U shape because I like that. And that works well for me. When I was your age, I used to love to draw castles, and I used to want to draw big, huge castles with big, huge walls, big, huge towers, and then I would draw big, huge doors, and this would happen. So here's my little wall. And I would draw a big, huge door for my big, huge castle, and all of a sudden, my big, huge castle didn't look big, huge anymore. It almost looked kind of small. It kind of shrunk a little bit when I had the big door on it. And the reverse can actually happen. If I was to have my castle here, and I was to draw an itty bitty door, notice how suddenly my castle looks a lot bigger.
That looks like a mouse hole.
Okay. Now if it gets too small, we won't recognize it as a door, and then it becomes a weird dot. Because it means that if this is a door, this is how tall my soldier needs to be, or my people are going in. If it's a bigger, my people then become bigger. If the door is smaller, then everyone has to shrink and become smaller to go in. So it makes everything else bigger. Does that make sense a little bit?
Yep.
The other thing that's going to happen with our doorway, rather than drawing our path straight as 2 lines, if I also draw 2 straight lines like that, it's going to look like a little stick that it's on. So I want you to think of the letter A, a capital letter A, when you draw these sorts of pathways. So it gets wider here, like that. By having it wider, gosh, then, and as it goes further away, it's going to appear to get smaller. Yes?
Are we allowed to do any pathways?
Certainly you can, absolutely.
Making rocks
But I
on
find
top.
that making it bigger at the bottom is going to make it look like it's actually on the ground, as opposed to if it's too straight up and down lines, it's going to look more like a stick.
Doing a rocky path.
Sure, you can definitely do that. Absolutely.
There, I made a rock path.
So the other strange thing is our moat that goes around here. Let's imagine our moat like a circle. And that's a beautiful circle. But as I turn my moat and make it look flat on the ground, it goes into perspective here. It doesn't get any wider. It stays the same width, but it appears like from the distance from the top side to the bottom gets smaller.
I'm making a wish.
It's part of it's called foreshortening. So for my castle here, for my moat, I want the sides to be nice and wide, but the space at the front can be very narrow. It can almost touch at times, but I keep the sides nice and wide, and that will make my moat look there. And I can even, if I wanted to, draw two little lines going slightly on the outside.
I made a banner.
And there, you can actually imagine the space going in.
And then just get a blue crown.
You definitely could.
A blue crown?
Yeah. We can put other details like little windows. We can put a little drawbridge.
I made a banner. You color?
You certainly can color anything you'd like. There's one other thing I am going to show you, and that is how to draw some flags that are waving. But I'm going to do that on a different piece of paper.